Bath lift their second trophy of the season. My name is Mark, let's talk rugby. Bath may have won this, but it was Lyon who actually had the better start of the two teams, holding the ball for the first kind of 3 or 4 minutes. Started with a very clever short kickoff, retained the ball from there, and other than 1 or 2 phases that Bath had, pretty much it was all Lyon. Then from a line out to set up a maul at the tail. Initially Bath don't actually go to defend this, so they get good momentum into the 22. Finally they get halted, then they shift it wide out into the tram lines, and Dumortier dives over in the corner. We have a TMO check to see, does he have a foot and touch? Volume yours, covering tackle, but it's all good. Conversion is missed. 5 points to 0. Lyon strike first. Russell then kicks a brilliant 50-22, and Bath have a first chance to attack. They win a penalty for not rolling, and Russell slots that for 5 points to 3. Lyon then looking to get to the edge at every opportunity, but you can see those floated passes that they're putting in. Like Bath are going for the interception, and at that stage it was a bit of a risky move for them, but they had to try something because they kind of knew, and I think many people knew, that Lyon had to kind of get themselves into a lead and make Bath chase the game, because if it went the other way, it was going to be a long evening for them. Unfortunately, that's what happened. Then Ojomo, he puts Butt through a gap and he's running for the line, but then Kuyu gets back to stop him. The ball goes loose and Lyon carry it over their own line. 5 metre attacking scrum to Bath. They look to attack up the short side, but Russell's pass goes to ground. Lyon kick it out, but they pretty much kicked it out straight there, so it's a 5 metre line out to Bath. Lyon then halt them all, but illegally so. Bath recycle with penalty advantage. They're right on the line. They get over, but it's blown up straight away. So we come back. They tap the penalty, although there was a little bit of debate about whether Tom Dunn actually tapped it properly or not, but it wasn't checked. It didn't have an effect anyway in the game overall, but he gets over the score with some help from Charlie Ewells. That's converted by Russell for 10 points to 5, and Bath lead at this stage. Lyon then, they look to come forward, but they knock it on, and Ben Spencer kicks a brilliant 50-22 with the loose ball. I think he actually kicked it, but then one of the Lyon players caught it to keep it in play, but he jumped from outside of play, so it was a 50-22. Anyway, then Underhill gets Bath close to the line. They're really going for it at this stage, and they recycle. Then they go for a wide pass to Ojomo, who spins out of a tackle and over to score the corner, convert for 17 points to 5, and Bath in control of the game at this stage. Lyon then, they get Ninyashvili into space on the left. He didn't see anywhere near enough ball in space. You can say that for most of Lyon's attacking threats, but he leads them into the 22. They worked within 5 meters, but then Bath pushed them back before conceding a penalty. Before that, then, they're lining up to kick, but we have a TMO check for a head-on-head tackle by Sam Underhill on Ninyashvili in that at the end of that run when he gets into the 22. Underhill came in from the side and basically just caught him flush in the head, and the officials decide that it's mitigated by a step back inside by Ninyashvili, but honestly, I don't think so. And I think Underhill was very lucky boy to actually be, not red carded. And I'm thinking Holly Davison, fantastic referee. I really like, the way she referees, but I my feeling is she didn't want to send someone off in the final. She's already sent them off in this competition earlier, in another game. But yeah, it was kind of like the way she said it to the TMO, and then the TMO kind of, I thought maybe the TMO would say, you might have another look at it, but if honestly felt like that the pressure of it being a final and not wanting to send someone off, when you look, and you can see why, because if you look at officials who have sent players off in big games, whether it's semi-finals or finals, they get an absolutely awful life, and like some officials, that's all they're known for, and that's probably what was, not necessarily to the front of, her mind or their mind as a team, but I think it was a factor, and, it's mitigated down to a yellow. Again, I don't think it should have been, but that's where we are. Then Underhill, he goes to the bin, but also he actually goes for an HIA, which he does later pass to come back on. But again, probably shouldn't have been coming back on at all. Then Lyon go to the corner from the penalty. They try to catch and drive from the line-out, but they do that thing where the lifters bank in behind the catcher right, before the opposition can actually get in there. So that's obstruction, offside. So penalty to Bath and a chance gone for them. Then Cockney with a lovely take in the air. That's followed by a clever kick from Russell from, it was kind of over the top into 22, and it forced Lyon to kick it out, but they didn't have much of an angle, so there was a chance from Bath from a line out into 22. They then, they're looking to add an extra score, but to give away a penalty for a neck roll, and if that felt like a bit of a let off to Lyon, because even though Lyon have the extra man, they're not really imposing themselves at all. It's still Bath, running things, and then Bath, they're eating up that yellow card time really well. But then Will Muir takes Dumortier out in the air, and they're down to 13 for a couple of minutes, the few minutes that was left on the first yellow card. Then Lyon kick the edge of 22 from that penalty. They go over the top. It's claimed and offloaded to Dumortier, who slices through and under the post, but there was an obstruction from Cretin on Dunn, and it's chalked off. Dunn, his theatrics though going to the ground, when Cretin made contact with him, we could do with less of that in rugby, honestly. Then Underhill comes back on for Bath, as I said, having passed his HIA and served his yellow card period. Lyon then, they come off a maul and they work the ball to within a few meters. They've got penalty advantage. They get held up over the line, so back we come for the penalty. We then have another TMO check for a high hit on Guillard, but there's no foul play and there's a knock on in the tackle. So basically that's half time at that stage. 17 points to 5. So, Lyon playing against 13 men couldn't score. They've got a few minutes to start the second half to potentially score, against 14. And then at halftime as well, Ben Breakspear, one of the assistant referees, picked up an injury in the first half, so he replaces Owen Cross, who's the one that picked up the injury in the first half. So bit of a substitution there, and good for him, getting it on a final as well. I bet he didn't expect that at the start of this week. Then Lyon offside. Russell makes it 20 points to 5 from the tee, and now they're winning the yellow card period. But we do have a strong carry from Ray that gets Lyon deep into 22. They're probing for a chink in the defence, and then Bota powers over with Guillard, providing some extra bulk, converted for 20 points to 12. And that was just at the end of that second yellow card period. Bath then turned Lyon over in a line out through Ewells, but they then knock on 5 mirrors out as they were going for another try. Then we have a head-on-head tackle from Lyon. It's giving us a low degree of danger. Bath kick to the corner. Probably would have been a yellow card, honestly, only for that. The Underhill incident seems to have moved the goalposts on, where those thresholds are for penalty, yellow card, red card with the head contact. So again, probably lucky to be still on the field there, but 10 minutes in the bin versus most of the game in the bin, or sorry, not in the bin, off the field completely. Lyon then offside twice, and they get a warning. Bath looking to kill the game. They go for a tap, and then Obano gets over, converted for 27 points to 12. And, Lyon, they worked really hard for those 7 points with that try, and it's just been completely wiped out. Then Bath come back to the Lyon line, but it's Dutoy carries. He gets held up over the line. Lyon, they're hanging on, but, the problem is Bath's bench having a massive impact on the game. Somebody mentioned it in my comments as well in the preview, and absolutely right on that. The difference in the benches was very stark, but also, Lyon, they're the team that's behind, and they're hanging on. Then Bath win a scrum penalty, go up the line into 22, move it off the top, but Lyon get over the ball, win a penalty, and decent defense from them. But again, they need to be up to their end. They're running out of time, and that's the problem. Is that the game is just running away from them, and Lyon, they go over the top from line out. Bath read it this time, turn the ball over. Ajomo with a nice carry. They then go to kind of the edge of the Lyon defence, where there's a bit of a dogleg. Glanville takes advantage of that. He breaks the line. Then he finds Spencer in support, who goes under the post, converts for 34 points to 12. And you're thinking at that stage, that's got to be the winning of the game. Then another scrum penalty to Bath, and Russell stretches it out to 37-12. Then last few minutes, Dumortier catches a chip over the top first, out of their own 22, then carries up over halfway, feeds it out to the wing, and there's a kick through. Cognizingha forced to carry over from his own line. We have a chance now for Lyon to get a consolation try, because the game is absolutely gone. There's only a couple of minutes left from the scrum, but then Bath win a penalty by absolutely monstering them at the scrum. The rest of the game then is just both teams trying to get the final score before the we're maybe 3 or 4 minutes, clock in the red, and then finally the game was over. Full time, 37 points to 12. Brilliant performance from Bath. Lyon definitely, when they look at this in the cold light of day, are going to be very disappointed with the performance, but it was, talked about in the preview, it was, a team in Lyon where, it was all about working for each other, and there's a couple of names in there, but you look at Bath, like star-studded, and they clicked as well. Lyon couldn't really get their game going for the most part. Like towards the end, they did, but again, the game was over, so it didn't really matter at that stage. But let's have a look at the stats, and we'll talk a little bit more about each of the teams. So first up on tries, so 4 tries to 2 in favour of Bath, and the thing with that is, like Lyon got the first try, right, and then Bath hit back to go ahead, and then even though Lyon's second try brought them back within 8 points, they never found anything after that, and Bath just stretched away, and just kind of strangled them in the end. Then looking at, the attacking numbers, so meters made, 384 to 342 for, in favor of Bath. Number carries 108 to 130. So you're talking about, for Bath, an average of about 3.5 meters per carry. And then for Lyon, it's, around about 2.8, I think, something like that. It's certainly under 3 meters per carry. Clean breaks then 8 to 6. And that's from, Bath only 12 defenders beaten. So being able to convert that into 8 clean breaks is excellent. Lyon, they beat 27 defenders, but if you watch the whole game, you'll know that some of those were like, kind of just crabbing across the field. We saw Dumortier do it. We saw Ninas really do it on multiple occasions. There was one time where he was going back and forth in front of the Bath defence. He even confused the referee and probably confused himself as well, and didn't really go anywhere. So, but still, some of his little moves and stuff in that would have been considered as defenders beaten. So not really cutting edge from them compared to Bath. Offloads then 9 to 14. But again, Lyon, some of the offloads were kind of just fling the ball, and it was actually causing problems for themselves. Like they'd offload, and then the guy who's going for it actually has to turn around, try to get the ball. He'd knock it backwards, and then he'd be under pressure from a Bath player. And they weren't good offloads, and that's something that we don't often talk about. And it's probably something in terms of, stats in rugby that really should be measured is, having like the quality of the offloads as well, not just the fact that the ball was offloaded. It stats for rugby compared to, the bigger sports, the likes of soccer or like some of the big American sports, is still in its infancy as well. There's a lot to be done there, but certainly, could be better stats on that. Passes then 93 to 135. So Lyon with, making more passes and possession as well, 47 to 53, and territory 49 to 51. So Lyon just about shading possession and territory, but again, no cutting edge from them. So like Bath, when they got in position, they weren't scoring all the time, but they were scoring at a much higher rate than Lyon, and it was just kind of ended up being one-sided in the end. Onto defence then, tackles made 148 to 117. Bath tackling at 74%, which is not very good. But you saw there, like, even though they had like 27 missed tackles, they weren't actually conceding that many line breaks compared to that. So, even though tackle percentage was poor, the scramble was good once the first man had been beaten. And that was kind of, certainly in terms of blunting, Lyon was certainly much in their favour. Lyon tackling at 80%. But again, problem for them was line breaks, were turning into, proper incursions into the 22 and scores as well. Then turnovers 1, 8 each. And, the thing again for Lyon was that it's all right matching Bath, but they had to outdo them on something, and it didn't really do it. Set pieces going Bath's way. Defense in terms of at least scramble and blunting the attack was going Bath's way. They needed to outdo them with the turnovers. They couldn't do that. And there wasn't really any area that they kind of, that they could build some kind of response around, and that was one of their big issues. On to set piece then, line out 13, line out takes to 10 in favour of Bath. Bath's line out at 93, which is really good. Lyon at 77 is poor. And again, going over the top, and Bath stole. It says line out steals 0 each, but I know that Ewell stole one line out at least for Bath, so that is wrong. Scrums won then 7 to 5. 100% for Bath on their own ball, 83 for Lyon on theirs, but Bath certainly way on top in that, like winning penalties, especially once the replacements front rows came on. Like, Lyon were kind of able to hold their own, not really put on pressure in the first half, but second half, once the benches had come on, Bath were absolutely dominating there. On to kicking then. Kicks from hand, 24-21, and Bath kicking for 561 meters compared to 495 for Lyon. So in terms of kick meters, those are fairly low, and you can see why, because if you watch the game, there's a lot of contestable kicks put up. So you're talking about 24 kicks, so you're talking about an average of maybe 20 meters per kick, whereas generally if a team is kicking long, they're going to average somewhere between 30 and 40 meters per kick, and the same really for both teams. Like Lyon averaging somewhere around 24 meters per kick, I think, on their side. So lots of contestable kicks put up. We got 4 retained kicks from Bath and 2 for Lyon, but again, it's something Bath team that loves to play ball in hand, but also it has to be coupled with a kicking game. A lot of people say, I don't like the kicking and I'd rather teams move the ball more, but teams use the kicking game again to set up those field positions where whether it's winning the kick and then being able to kind of get in among a disrupted opposition defense, or whether it's just a case of trying to move the opposition defense around with your kicks and get them in a shape that you can exploit. Kicking is a very important part of attacking with ball in hand. They kind of go hand in hand. Onto the breakdown then. So Rooks won 61-87, 1 Rook lost each. Bath at 94%, which, although it's in the 90s, is compared to what we'd expect. You'd expect them to be up around 96 or higher, right? And then you got Lyon at 98, which is decent, but again, just not enough. And as well with them, they found, even though they were winning the Rooks, slow ball, and that was a bit of a killer for them. Maul totals then 4-6. Maul success 100% to 67. Maul meters gained. Again, we're not going to talk about this because I've said it so many times. This figure is wrong. This is actually the number of successful mauls. 4 successful mauls for Bath, which gives them that 100%, and then 4 successful mauls for Lyon, which gives them that 60% out of 6. Okay, so let's talk about the teams. We start with Lyon, the losing team. So they won this competition 3 years ago in 2022, and they were hoping to repeat it here, but there was, other than like that start where they got the early try, right, there was never anywhere other than that a point in the game where even I think the most diehard Lyon fan thought they were going to win the game. Like Bath were just in complete control. They struggled at set piece. They also struggled with trying to break down that Bath defense and trying to contain Bath too. Like they conceded a lot of line breaks, and once Bath were in behind, other than like there was one decent scramble from Kuyu, but other than that, like once Bath were kind of in behind, it was good night really on that. And in terms of from themselves, they one of the best things that Lyon have done through the tournament is just quick ball, keeping that continuity, getting pick and goes around the corner, just keeping the defense on their toes, always on the back foot, and being able to make meters because of that, because they're not letting the opposition defense settle. The only time they did that was once the clock was in the red, the game was done, and they started to do that. to make meters. By then, it didn't matter. And that was the problem, that they other than that quick start, they found it very hard to get any kind of momentum in the game. Even when they were playing against 13 men, they were on the back foot for the most part. Bath were controlling the game, and they did. I think they did well to get to the final, but they'll be disappointed with the performance that they put in here. But at the same time, I think as a team, they should be proud of their achievement in reaching the final in the first place. On to Bath then. So, they fell behind early, didn't panic, got themselves together. They took their penalty just to get on the board. Then they got that try, well worked. And from there, they didn't really look back. They took control of the game. I thought their kicking game was much better than Lyon's. Lyon's was a bit kind of, hit and miss. Whereas Bath, like, for the most part, their kicks were calculated and they were putting pressure on Lyon all the time. Defense as well, up quick, smothering Lyon, preventing them as well getting to that width that we're trying to do early in the game, and then also slowing the ball down. Now, it's got to be said as well, though, very lucky that they played, the majority of the game with 15 men, because they could have been down to 14 for, like, what was it, 3/4 of the game, had Underhill rightly been sent off. But I honestly think that even if he had been sent off, the Bats still would have won the game. I think it would have been similar to maybe Racing away at Connacht in the quarterfinals, where Racing went down to 14 men there and were the better team for the rest of the game. I think Bath had the players to be able to do that as well. But at the same time, I still think that Underhill should have gotten a red card for that. But at the same time, I'm not criticizing Holly Davison and the refereeing team, because again, like so many like referees. Like, if you think of Wayne Barnes, like, a lot of people would think about the fantastic referee, but most people are going to think about that France versus New Zealand, right? And was it a forward pass, right? And then you think about Alan Roland, and it's the Wales semi-final and the Warburton red card, right? And even though by the letter of the law it should have been a red card, although people can argue about that, still that's what he's remembered for, right? So a lot of referees aren't necessarily remembered for being good officials. They're remembered for one big incident or a few big incidents, right? That kind of stain their reputation, and I think maybe that's part of the reasoning why he didn't get a red card. But having said that, again, I think that they still would have won the game. I think the bench had an absolutely massive impact on it, and even if they were down to 14, bringing on that bench when they did, still would have swung the game in their favour. We saw that Lyon were struggling against 14 and then 13 to get really anything on the board, and I think that from that, Bath would have felt like would have felt fairly comfortable, honestly, defending against them with 14 for most of the game. But it didn't happen, and Bath, they it wasn't like they didn't like tear them to shreds or anything like that. But what they did do was they got themselves in front, and then they just kept any chance they got, they were getting points, they were getting tries or knocking over the odd penalty, and it just the accumulation of those points was too much for Lyon to counter. And I think it was very smartly run final, and that's what you need. You know, there's no point in throwing the ball around all over the place and maybe, you know, giving Lyon an intercept try, and suddenly, you know, instead of you being like 27-12 up, you know, now you're 20-19 and it's a 1 point game. But really well managed, and I think it's you know, a testament to how Finn Russell has improved as a player. You know, he has the ability to throw the miracle passes, but he's got more control over games now as well. And I think we saw a lot of that today, like some really clever kicks, some, you know, also they're taking the points again when it made sense, and just kind of driving his team around the field. And then when it was on, he was going. Like, it wasn't like he was on a leash or anything like that. It was just, I think he's just a smarter player now than maybe he was a few years ago. But great performance from Bath, fully deserved of the win. You know, again, well done to Lyon for getting to the final. It's a pity that they couldn't show how good a team they are, but you know, they've been thereabouts in this competition again, winning it, you know, 3 years ago, and I'm sure they're going to be back in you know, next year as well. Well, they certainly won't be in the Champions Cup, given that they're 11th in the top 14. But yeah, probably if they're, you know, back in it next year, you know, they're going to be one of the teams to beat again. But Bath, 2 trophies now this season. They're still like they're top of the Premiership, so they got their semi-final, you know, coming up in a couple of weeks' time, and then potentially, you know, they could have a treble on their hands as well this year. So fantastic season for them. They've already got 2 trophies in, you know, in the cabinet now, and having won, you know, a European trophy as well. For me, it doesn't matter that it's the Challenge Cup versus the Champions Cup. Obviously, the Champions Cup is the more salubrious one, and that's the one everybody wants to win. But, you know, when you look at teams down through the years, there's still not that many teams, and even though there's a lot of good teams knocking about, that actually lift the European trophy. So well done to Bath on that. And, you know, that's it for me. Let me know what you think down in the comments.